Okay, we are live. I'm just going to give it another 30 seconds or so, and then I will bring our special guest up today. So, everyone, just hang tight and we will get started shortly. Okay, I am so excited. Hello, everyone. I am Affable AI's community manager, Brenna Attorney, and I am here today with the wonderful Emmy Award winning brand and media advisor, Vinny Potestivo. So I'm going to bring him up and we are going to get this conversation started. I want to be able to get through everything. And if you guys don't know who Vinny is, and I bet a lot of you do, he is wonderful. He knows exactly what's going on in the creator economy. He knows what's going on LinkedIn. He has been everywhere, and I'm so excited for him to introduce himself. So, Vinny, go ahead, tell everyone a little bit about yourself, and we will get this going.
Oh gosh, I'm excited to be here. I've been in media since the mid 90s. I stayed in New York City where I was born and raised because cable was here and the live access to the world sort of stems from Times Square, especially in the mid 90s. And I got to work with some of the top creators and I got to empower women who launched gigantic businesses. Jessica Simpson, Sharon Osbourne. We got to help Ashton Kutcher launch his production company. I saw how brands were built. And when we all had the opportunity to have a camera in hand and create content without needing to go through those pearly gates of the TV industry, when the creators could finally speak up and actually create the content that the community wanted, not just the representation of conversation, but the actual conversations, when I flipped and I've been on this side, helping people maximize their reach, both with the modern sort of media and the convergence of old technology and new technology. And just here to really connect brands to creators to opportunities for everyone to win. And I'm honored to be here. And I love the platform. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. And if you guys hear my AC in the background, please ignore it. I know it is so loud, but long story short, we have an absolute pro here today. Like I said, super insightful knowledge. I'm so excited to get this conversation started. And if you guys don't know, and I'm sure I'll let Vinny kind of tell you about it, he has a podcast as well as a newsletter. And he, like I said, super knowledgeable. I really enjoyed his podcast when we discussed everything LinkedIn, Q3, what was coming up at the time. I think you had done this podcast back in towards the end of Q2, maybe. So we're going to get a little bit into what, trends we've seen in Q3. But what we're going to start with is trends that we've seen throughout 2023 and especially Q3. So my first question for you is, why do you think creators rush to embrace new platforms? I feel like we saw it with Lemonade and Threads. Do you think it's this hope for instant fame as another means to grow their already audience, but they often lose interest very quickly? So what do you think? How do you think they should maintain commitment for long-term success?
That's a great question. And there's a lot of context that you threw into that question. So I want to navigate that a bit. And I'll be very clear about this. I sort of mentioned earlier, I worked at MTV at a point in time where youth culture was only represented by one network and only one place had live access from 3:30 to 4:30, to an audience. I think the biggest difference now is that those platforms need stars.
Mm-hmm.
And here, okay, let's imagine this. MTV in the 80s and 90s, you know what that looks like on Instagram? It looks like a feed with a lot of different faces.
Right.
And I think a lot of brands will say more consistent visibility, more consistent face. We trust people. So flooding people with so many faces, it's not the same thing as seeing those consistent faces. What I got to be a part of at MTV was when a platform discovered stars, Johnny Knoxville, Jessica Simpson, Sharon. I mean, I can go. Diddy had a show on MTV. I mean, so much greatness passed through just for that launch of audience. And I think that's completely related to why creators go to these platforms. These platforms need stars as much as the creators need access to earned reach. Threads, for example, was great in the beginning days because there was a huge wave of sign-ons, and then that wave kind of recessed a little bit,
Mhm.
and then a larger wave came, yet again, and then there's more connectivity to Facebook. So it's a new platform. It doesn't need the creator or the person or the brand to
Mhm.
change their point of view on
Mhm.
their message. It only allows them to use a new tool, a new device. And
Right.
that's where I think the niching gets created. That's where the
Mhm.
stars get created. It's on these platforms, these additional
Right.
links that allow us
And
in.
I think I've seen a lot recently. I've seen a lot of TikToks at the time when Lemonade came out, specifically, where I saw it kind of blow up on TikTok, where people would say, "This is my chance. This is
Yeah.
going to be the next big thing." And I think that drew a lot of people because me as well at the time, I was saying, "Oh, I missed my chance on TikTok." I've worked with TikTok creators, and they all got on really in that 2019, 2020. So when people saw all their audiences, with 500K, a few million followers, they really thought they'd missed their chance because then the algorithm
Yeah.
obviously got more regulated and went on. It was just a lot harder. And I think people see these new platforms and are just going to assume that the algorithm is going to be um, representative of how TikTok was in 2019 and 2020.
Yeah.
That they could really kind of blow up in that moment.
Yeah, well, it's again like those platforms need their stars,
Mhm.
and I think where creators get it wrong, or maybe even where brands might misstep, is they're early adopters, but they don't stay long enough,
Right, right.
and I think that's if you're measuring immediately by the saves and shares, and those metrics of impact are related to the performance of the post, you're always going to be underwhelmed. Trust me, my hits aren't even in HD, and hundreds of millions of people have seen some of the episodes I made in the 90s and early 2000s.
Right.
You'll never get that. Movies won't get that reach. TV shows don't get that reach. The more platforms that get added, it's not necessarily just additional reach for the creators.
Mhm.
It's a more congested marketplace. It's more
Right.
difficult to find. So if you are a brand and you are solid and consistent, or a creator and are solid and consistent in your point of view, this is a unique way to allow you to express
Mhm.
that point of view and serve. I wouldn't focus on building a new audience or building what my tone is on Threads or my tone is on these early. I would focus on um, now how you want to be represented.
Right.
Use it as Easter egg. Use it as the opportunity to be first and be there, and to put the good stuff up first.
Mhm.
Because this is what's happening now in the content world. There's
Right.
so many small to medium-sized creators that get discovered, and they have years of content.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
this is a great example. Years of content.
Mhm.
They impact. Brands have the opportunity to be part of that. I'm thinking about the timing of brands. I was at MTV 98 to 06. I can list a bazillion stars that are
Right.
giant names.
Right.
Put Beyonce in her first film. We
Right.
brought Mandy Moore to TV. I mean, we did some, and those stars, their message, because people trust people.
Right.
That's what grows, and that's what's exponential. So,
Right.
yeah.
Awesome. That already answered one of my questions.
Oh,
So I
cool.
think that's really great advice for especially aspiring content creators who are smaller to really stick with it, not just look for, again, I feel like my generation, it's that short-term gratification, the instant gratification of just wanting to see results. And it's so hard for people to want to stick with that one thing. But I think at the end of the day, that's how Alex Earl blew up. She was talking
Yeah.
about how everyone was making fun of her freshman year. Fast forward, 3-4 years later, and she's obviously the most well-known,
Yeah. I
we
mean,
have
TikTok
right,
launched quite a bunch of stars. I mean, so as a 40-year old, I'm in the 45 plus bucket now, which is fun. It's okay. You can't be at MTV doing what I was doing and not be legal to go to bars and stuff like that. So I was at least 21 when I started. But TikTok sure did make stars, and someone who's a bit disconnected from the hyper youth culture of now. When I'm watching the VMAs, for example,
yeah,
and someone walks by, I turn to my man and I was like, "Wait a second, who's that singer? I don't know who that is." And he's like, "That's not a singer, it's a TikToker." And I was like, "That's a
right,
whole, it's an at for me, it was athletes, celebrities,
right, right,
personalities, journalists.
right.
This is the power of platforms. We saw some big comedians get launched this year because comedy does well on social platforms.
Mhm.
Oh, the more the more brands that can invest in creators, that can invest in the the promise of what that creator has the potential to be. I think that's truly wherein the big relationship with small creators and any size brand really has the potential for exponential growth, is because we as people be rooting for people way before we're rooting for businesses,
Right.
and people trust people. It's
Mhm.
and again, like I look at the golden age of TikTok. Yeah, I think you're
Yeah.
right. There was a window there,
Mhm.
Lemonade, I think the Lemonade, I think that uh Blue Sky, is that the other Blue Sky? Is that another
I
one of
haven't
those?
heard of Blue Sky. I've heard of the app Clapper though, which was exactly like TikTok. So and the views were crazy on that
Oh
app.
yeah.
So that will be interesting. I think they
Yeah.
really kinda capitalized on when TikTok was really going through that whole potential
Yeah,
TikTok ban in
yeah, it
January.
is Blue Sky. Blue Sky is a new one that's popping up, y'all.
Okay.
Blue Sky. Remember Be Real,
Mhm.
Remember Be Real before
Mhm.
TikTok went and took that feature away? And but that's again,
Yeah,
these features are moments in time, by the way.
right.
Y'all, how funny for us as a globe to understand what tweeting and Twitter meant. Imagine what reading back in the history books, a couple of thousand years from now or 100 years, they'll be like, wow, what did they say it was? What? So just to be so present in the technology now allows us to execute our message in a better, stronger way. And if you're focused on the demographics, the demos are going to change
Mhm.
based on two things. One, whatever is the best way to position an existing audience on a platform that is as beneficial to the advertiser that's being on it. So I'll be honest, that there's that, that way. And two, time.
Mhm.
When I worked at MTV, we were 12 to 24. Now it's clearly 18 to 24. But
Mhm.
Nick Cannon is still on that network. Rob Dyrdek
Yeah.
is still on that network. TJ Lavin is still. I mean,
Mhm.
some really. It just goes as a testament to like the timing of it. So invest in those small creators that have promise, that are
Mhm.
out. And to be honest, the creators are the ones who need it most. The ones
Definitely.
that are trying to
And
be
we've
themselves without being financially reliant on
exactly.
something that makes you not.
And we've
Yeah.
seen this big trend of, brands will come to us all the time and really talk about the benefits of micro creators and why they should switch and the conversions and how the engagement and how everyone trusts them. So do you want to speak a little bit on that and, how you think they'll continue to grow and what impact you think they'll have as we really enter into 2024?
Yeah. Oh, I've seen it. I mean, look, if you can be a brand that's associated with a piece of talent, a celebrity, a creator, a leader, anyone who chooses to be on camera and have a voice and lead a conversation, if you could be attached to that creator at the moment where awareness turns into recognition, where I'm not just aware of that person's presence and I've already subscribed and I'm aware of when they make a post and I invite them in, but when I can recognize the name, when I can
Right.
recognize the value of that, when you're a brand and associated with that moment in time, it, again, like I can think of some classic Coca-Cola commercials that didn't invest in this. They had Britney, but there was other artists that were there that weren't, at the same height of that, and it could have been a different cast. And they invested wisely in
Mhm.
artists that grew into, and those it becomes iconic. And that's where, again, the demographics are predicated on time.
Mhm.
I have hit shows on Netflix right now that are ranking because they're good for now,
Right.
not because they were meant for the demographic, to
Right.
see Laguna Beach charting because podcasts have, it's been a cool opportunity now to grow. And I'll tell you this, I've seen more platforms get launched than
Mhm.
podcasts or TV
Mhm.
shows, unfortunately, now that the strike is
Mhm.
slowly getting resolved. We're getting back to that. So I've seen less shows, less podcasts. I've seen more platforms that are just leveraging more content. And it's the
Mhm.
creators who are exponentially owning the IP that is creating this content verse that's exploding the podcast world at a rapid because they own their content. And I'll tell
Right.
you what, I know that content is way more affordable now to invest in
Mhm.
than what's already on that publicly traded market. I know that for sure.
Do you think that there's a brand right now that's working with micro creators or kind of upcoming stars really well in particular? I feel like someone I've noticed who is just quick to it.
Hmm.
I would say the stars are a little bit more established, but I'd say Skims. I mean, they
Hmm.
really honed into TikTok stars, Gen Z,
Hmm.
um, Ice Spice. They did Nessa Barrett. I know we saw, oh, I forget her name. She was in the Game Plan with The Rock. We all, you know who I'm talking about.
Oh
Oh no,
yeah.
no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. That wasn't Sophia. Um, oh my gosh, I can't think of her name. She was on Jesse
I don't
Scott.
know, Jesse.
The show Jesse, I forget her name, but I feel like Skims does a really good job of that.
Yeah.
And you just saw it with MAC Cosmetics jumping on
Yeah.
Tube Girl, and obviously she's already been at the Hugo Boss show and she just walked in a show. So hopefully that was such a great example of, marketing done right. And I think that we're going to see a lot of brands start to take advantage of those types of situations the minute they start to see a creator blow up, probably even before she did, if they see
Oh yeah.
their trajectory of being someone like her.
Yeah. I would say from an organized perspective, I kind of loved what H&M did. They kind of had a cast of recurring
Mhm.
creators, and we really got to, I don't know, we really got to experience the same line of clothing, but just through different. It added a lot of context to what generally is content. Like usually it's social
Mhm.
media, and that's content. That's an end result. I think they were able to tell a much larger narrative, and they found people who weren't quite at that Skims
Mhm.
level yet, that might
Right.
have an M in their following or a six-digit following.
Right.
So that stands out to me. Supreme, in terms
Mhm.
of being a collaborative brand that is V Files, and I'm thinking of some brands that are just really cool that
Mhm.
have leveraged their resources, are almost faceless brands but
Mhm.
collaborate really well. And of course, H&M, in my opinion, was early adopter to the
Mhm.
celebrity drop collaboration. I mean, I've
Right.
gone to those store openings in Times Square and in New York City. I have an Alexander Wang like limited edition.
Nice.
Those I remember, and then Target, I think, was another
Mhm.
big chain that I'd like to mention that I think does a really great job of being inclusive on a giant
Mhm.
scale. Like that's momentum, that it's inertia and momentum that it takes to collaborate with a brand that level that has
Mhm.
physical brick and mortar. And I've seen Target pull off some pretty cool collaborations. And yeah, so on that big level, I would say those three come to mind.
Do you have kind of any advice for maybe a smaller brand on how they could start to leverage relationships like that? Obviously
Yeah.
not on, a scale of a Target or H&M, but maybe just some tips that they could, think about when looking for creators to partner with on campaigns like this.
Yeah, well, I think it's yeah, I'm almost laughing at this question because like the first thing that comes to mind is like we as brands want to make sure creators have a long form plan. We want to know that what their
Right.
game plan is and
Right.
know what's coming next, and that they're going to have output, and trust that they're not going to flake, and they're not going to pivot and do something different in the last minute and blah blah blah. I've worked at a lot of brands where I bring that question up to us, and everyone's like, "Well, let's take it quarter by quarter." And I think because of the social media platforms, I think creators really truly do have more leverage now. And
Mhm.
I hope that conversation can be more supportive and in favor, of ways to collaborate with people in unique styles. But that's just like, I don't know. That's one thing I was sort of want to bring
Yeah.
up is like, even if it's like even if it's an annualized contract,
Mhm.
there's there are networks that are, we're having giving 6-month contracts and are now giving 1-year contracts, and then talents are like, do I want to be, attached to this? I would say the best way to approach this is to understand what your long form plan is. Even if there's an acquisition in line, what the
Mhm.
5 to 10 year trajectory of supporting the conversations you're creating now is.
Mhm.
I'd like to take it in that direction. Like if you're turning to a micro, a macro, or any influencer, anyone, if you're even putting your own brand voice out there and starting a conversation, the public responsibility, the brand responsibility of supporting that conversation and all of its facets should be part and baked into the ideation and creation and launch of those conversations. I'm saying this again, coming from the reality TV world where I've been part of shows and have seen tactics where there's more alcohol than food and there's more than facts, and uh uh, and so, and you know what? I think that to me sort of says like that's a little bit of gamification. That's like
Mhm.
producers gamifying the creator process. And this is something I'd love to bring up,
Yeah.
especially as gamification is talked about in influencer marketing, that it's a competitive market already, peer to peer.
Right.
I don't. So I have a brand that I consult with, and they coming out with a top 10, and my consultation on them was to have a top 10, not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I don't need to know. In
Right.
fact, it's more powerful if it's just your top
Right.
10, like we don't let everyone be the top 10. They don't have to
Yeah.
give that top one. And for
Right.
me, it's that like being a creator feels more like a solo sport in a
Right.
nationally televised league. So
Right.
everyone sees us playing together, but most
Right.
of the time we're creating, in our own silos. So understanding what the brand's trajectory is to support those
Mhm.
conversations helps us show up and sort of better. I say us being on the indie creator side. And Brenda, in our generation, and the generation of people who just aren't afraid to be on in front of a camera to express their opinions,
Mhm.
who also know that everything we're saying is recordable, and if it's out there, it's in perpetuity, even if we take it away.
Right.
So I say that because I trust your brand. I show up
Mhm.
because of who you work with, and the reputation and the consistency and the future that you see for the creator market. I wouldn't be able to show up any other way. And who
Mhm.
you are and who the brand is matters as much as, hopefully, like my past, my history, my past, my present, because that looks good,
Yeah.
on LinkedIn and the posts, whatever. But more importantly, the conversations we start
Mhm.
in the future, like the
Definitely.
deeper investments in creators that they can be making, as opposed to buying of time. And by the way, I'm not taking away from buying content like that needs to be on the table also, by the way.
Right.
Like, licensing is a wonderful thing to creators, and like the more they understand that the intellectual property they own, the better off we all
Definitely.
are.
Mhm.
It's about content, how we can leverage those libraries. You've seen it. It's
Mhm.
it's how it grows.
Definitely. So I want to kind of switch gears a little bit, and I really want to talk about the rise of the AI influencer that we've
Oh
been
yeah.
seeing a lot of. So, how is the rise of AI influencers and the expansion of AI marketplaces reshaping the social media landscape? And what opportunities do creators have to incorporate AI technology to generate substantial incomes?
Oh my gosh, I love this question, by the way. Wait, do you remember when, like, maybe this is true for you. Do you remember when did you graduate in like the last 10 years from college?
Yes.
So maybe when you graduated from college, you were an expert in TikTok, because like that was your age group,
Probably.
right?
Yeah, that was my
Like
age
like
group.
and then the demographic before is like they were experts in Instagram and Facebook,
Right,
right?
right.
Like so I think that the benefit here. Wait, are you there?
I'm right here. Are you there?
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry about
We're
that. I thought. Yeah.
back?
Okay. Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
good. We're back.
All right. Wait. We were just talking about, the question was
The question was, how is the rise of AI influencers?
AI. Right. Right. Okay.
Yes.
So here's the benefit of what's happening with AI, in my opinion, is there's now a new lens on all of our conversations. There's a new lens on media. There's a new lens on business. There was a point in time where my demographic was known for, oh, well, they're tech savvy. So like if it has a plug, he must be able to know what to do with it, because if it turns on, they must be able to know what it is, right? Um, the benefit now for creators that I'm calling out is that I believe there will be this assumption that younger people who are entering the market have the ability to see an opportunity
Mhm.
that hasn't been tainted by our own experiences in the 20,
Right.
30, 40, 50 years, that 60, 70 years that we've been in our industry. And when we think of revolutionary change, I'm lucky to say that I was there when I saw the typewriters turn into
Mhm.
computers. That's what gave me my advantage to work for MTV. To be honest, in 1998, I knew how to wire two VCRs together to edit, when most people needed a big central terminal computer and something
Right,
like that. So the benefit here is there's a new lens on business, and there's a
right.
completely new um, dimension
Mhm.
I don't even want to say like platform of opportunity, but dimension of opportunities for growth. It is inevitable.
Mhm.
So avoiding it just means that there will be a point in time where you will say, "Oh, I'm too late to have a website. I'm too late to be on social media." By the
Right,
way, I'm too late to have. I remember when people are like, my mom says to me, "Why do you need a social? Why do you? So why do you need a phone number?
right,
Who's gonna call you all the time on your cell
right.
phone?" I was like, "Ma, I gotta get rid of this beeper. I don't have any way to call." And I think it's an opportunity for communication and development and where a lot of technology has been measured on growth, a lot of audience success has been measured on growth. I
Mhm,
think that AI is going to bring us into this realm of development
mhm.
where growth is predicated more on on the future development and
Right,
refinement of conversation versus previous and past performance of old posts.
right.
Hopefully what we're doing in this generation of content is we've all been on social, we've all been frustrated, brands and creators alike. We Let's consider this to be our first album, right? AI is going to allow us to have a second album, and if that
Mhm,
second album goes platinum, goes
mhm,
gold, goes double, I promise you that those newfound fans will go back and have a trove of content
mhm,
for you to find. And that's where the non-linearity
mhm.
of the relationship between influencer and brand when we're hiring them just for campaign measurement purposes, and the transaction is a sale
Mhm,
now
mhm.
versus ever, is really going to be dynamically different. And there are more platforms now, which means that we have the ability to take the content we own,
Mhm.
all that money we spent on stories can now be on shorts.
Right,
You can't necessarily do the TikTok conversion, but it works the other way around, you know?
right.
So again, that comes from creators owning their own content. They now have catalogs, libraries of
Mhm.
content, and most people even archive. We archive our stuff now on social, like on Instagram, so you can't even see. We edit in some
Mhm.
ways the past, even though we have access to all of it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And do you think, because I've already started to see some people I follow pop up with, hey, here's my new AI avatar where you can go talk to her and whatnot. So, do you think that brands are going to embrace these virtual influencers, or do you think there will be concerns about trust and about the ability for this AI influencer to authentically connect with their audience? And I'm sure as
yeah,
as we go through time, it's going to develop to that point where we will trust them and it will feel
yeah.
authentic. But at least for the time being, how do you think brands are going to try and navigate this, new world in a way and test the waters because they also don't want to be behind when, everyone else kind of dips their toes in it.
Yeah, I think I asked a question to Mandy Moore about this on my podcast,
Mhm.
and she said it's the input dictates the output,
Mhm.
and in AI, and this was before AI was even invented, or at least to the mass public, at least I would say that. And when I was playing that episode back again, and I heard her talk about the input dictates the output, and I put it to the context of AI, it
Mhm.
really struck a chord for me. And now that I've seen some more tools be created and implemented, I'll say it this way. I've seen some cool podcasters take AI
Mhm.
and input old episodes that they've created so that when someone comes and asks that AI version of themselves, how do I launch a podcast?
Yeah,
The AI custom cuts and streams a
very
unique
cool.
experience for the listener to because the input dictates the output. I don't want the answers, I want the experience now.
Right.
I think that that's where brands and influencers who are looking to niche a message or niche a conversation or specifically reach an audience in a niched way will win
Mhm.
by collaborating with creators that have built trust and
Mhm.
own their content and have the
Right.
ability to leverage AI.
That's a really,
That's
really
an
good point.
exciting intersection
Yeah,
for me.
that's a
Yeah.
really, really great point. So, kind of moving into these podcasts in a way and the value in making this long form content. And I know we talked about this when we kind of first were talking about doing a webinar,
Yeah.
but so short form has been obviously dominant in recent years. Nevertheless, there seems to be a transition towards longer form content. And we've seen TikTok and Instagram allow this. And then obviously YouTube. And what advantages do you think it would offer? And one that I really love that we had kind of briefly touched on was now when people can upload a longer form podcast and then the short form to TikTok, people don't necessarily need to watch the long form content, and they can gather everything from the videos. And my favorite example is the Drake and Bobby Altoff interview that happened, that I'm so upset it was taken down still.
Yeah.
I was able to gather everything from the clips. I don't think I ended up watching the full interview.
Yeah.
Do you kind of have any thoughts on that? And where
Yeah.
you'll see that going?
It's funny you talk about the clips and not seeing the full interview. I mean, most of us have seen the trailers for movies we can talk
Mhm.
about and cite as if we've seen them.
Right.
Uh, that's why when people talk about this repurpose word, it's a little irksome to me, because repurpose is like a reaction to something that didn't happen. So you have to go back and make something that it wasn't. So I love this rephrasing it into pre-purposement and really focusing on the idea that we do need to make sure that we're aware of the marketing collateral, the promotional assets. We need, again, to be responsible for how we're going to support the conversation when we start
Right.
the conversation. The last thing I'm going to do is start a conversation that no one wants to hear. The
Right.
trend now, which I'm excited about, because you're right, it's been, long form, short
Mhm.
form, is the medium form
Mhm.
content. Like that 7 to
Yeah.
15-minute segment. If you have a 45-minute podcast and it's broken down into
Right.
3 15-minute segments, which probably will help save you on editing, it'll
Right.
make you a sharper interviewer to stay more on topic, to dive deeper down
Mhm.
into a topic at a specific time, be able to leverage that in a different way, especially since YouTube is putting so much priority on shorts.
Mhm.
So now that you can have shorts related to another video,
Right.
I would recommend. So my path, my journey on YouTube, it goes shorts to medium video, and then in the medium video description, I link to the good old fashioned
Nice.
ugly black box with the white squiggle waveforms on it that got uploaded a couple of years ago. But I'm breathing life into old content that way, because I'm able to create a linear path
Right.
to a specific conversation. That's something I have to do manually now.
Mhm.
That's where, for example, YouTube AI, and if we have the ability to use a filter specifically only on our channel, or maybe the tool is maybe we can collaborate, and maybe me and you, maybe our podcast together create our network, and
Right.
that's a unique way that we can monetize cleanly on a platform
Mhm.
that pays creators. And again, it's like that, thinking of that evergreen content, not the content that has to convert now.
Right.
That will come in the context. In great context comes action, but in the content, if you're going to invest in creators, I would invest in that
Mhm.
long form, evergreen support
Definitely.
content. Yeah, it's more organic to their audience. You'll get way more out of it.
Definitely. And how do you think that, and again, you can take some of that into this question, because I've actually seen some of the old creators I work with who really started on YouTube, go to TikTok, but they, at the end of the day, they are long form content creators
Mhm.
and that's their bread and butter. And this might be a trend that we've really kind of seen more of in Q3. But what do you think some of the biggest trends for were that would expand kind of as we enter Q4?
Uh, yeah, right. So I would say I'm seeing also less lives. Are you seeing less lives in
Yes.
general? I'm seeing
Yeah.
less lives.
The lives I see are not entertaining whatsoever. It's not it. It's not it for
I'll
me.
tell you what, though, Zoom came out with a new feature this week, where if you do the piece. Oh,
Oh.
I guess this is an Apple update. I wasn't aware of that, by the way. Oh yeah, because I just updated my app. Oh wow, that's so cool.
That's funny.
Wait, that was very distracting. Talk about entertaining, I tell you. I'm here all day. So by the way, how funny that should happen, that we should see
Yeah.
AI happen like that, by the way. One big trend that I'm seeing, that's going to shift. So, one of my tricks in social media, instead of posting all the time to be part of a conversation, has been to create stickers or memes that show up on Jiffy, so I can be
Mhm.
posted as a GIF or a sticker
Yeah.
and be used in stories that way. Since the advent of AI, that Jiffy index, my library, is no longer the output of my sticker. It's now the input to video generative
Okay.
AI tools. So I'm seeing videos of me holding a LinkedIn mug on TikTok now that are being used, that are not in my circle.
Right.
It's giving me added visibility. By the way,
Yeah,
when my friend told me that they saw it, I reached
that's
out to
so
the brand and I said, "This is so weird, but I'm the LinkedIn guy." I felt like dude, you're getting. Oh, you don't know this, but there used to be a guy who
funny. The LinkedIn.
Ben Curtis used to. God love this guy. He's a great podcaster. He was the Dell dude. He was like, "Dude, you're
Okay,
getting a Dell."
that's
And I was like,
funny.
but oh my god, I'm so distracted by this balloon
That's
thing.
funny.
Um, but that AI is going to add more context. It's going to create more opportunities for us to be unique and stand out.
Mhm.
Now that those videos are being made in my likeness,
Mhm.
excuse me, take a little drink. The balloons got me. Now that those videos are being made in my likeness, I actually reached out to the brand and I said, hey, I'm the LinkedIn guy. Would you mind tagging me? I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't know what to ask
yeah,
for. And they're like, yeah, that's kind of like a weird request. I was like, if AI
yeah,
is going to be used and we don't use it to bring us together,
right,
then it's going to rip us apart. So like,
right.
let us find more of these moments. I've been in TV a long time. I brought it up I've name dropped a couple of
Yeah.
times, but I say this, I don't feel like anyone stole my ideas or, because they came up with a reality show about another family that wasn't the Osbournes. It's called the Kardashians. Or I
Right,
don't feel like that was like someone ripping I cast a housewife, one of the housewife franchises. I don't feel
right.
like duped because other people have done what I've done. I feel proud
Yeah,
to be a trendsetter,
yeah,
to spot the trend in action and to
definitely.
be able to support it because I'm mindful of what I start. And I
Mhm.
think that brands and creators should think the same.
Awesome. And then I know we have about 10 minutes left, and I want to have time for questions. So if people want to start sending them in, if you have any, and if we have time to get to them, that would be great. But just a couple wrap up questions. As Q4 approaches, do you want to give me maybe 3 ways that brands can end this year in style and what trends they should be hopping on, maybe especially as we enter the holiday season?
Oh yeah, sure. I'd be mindful of creators who are doing things in real life. The trend is real life events, taking the digital and creating in-person opportunities for meetups. There are brands. There's a podcast convention that I love called Podfest that's coming up in January. So if you're an indie creator and you want to know more information about that, reach out. But I love Podfest. It's an awesome community of people. They take time to tour America with localized chapters, localized contacts
They
there.
were just in Austin, actually.
Oh yeah, there you
I
go.
almost went to it too.
Oh, I'll be speaking at Podfest in
Nice,
January. So if you come, we'll
nice.
see you there. It's a community that I really support because they support us
Yeah.
and they think about that long form. There's an education
Mhm,
model that comes with leadership, and that is having built a routine and a syllabus for how to support
mhm.
the conversation. Um, so I think there's one that is these in persons. Again, email marketing is back.
Mhm.
Newsletters are a big thing. There are a lot of the digital products
Yeah,
have circles and memberships and easy community opportunities to build on. And so I'm seeing a
mhm.
lot of newsletter growth.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm seeing a lot of I was just speaking with a company too who is utilizing creators
mhm.
and their newsletters to help brands essentially like pay for a sponsorship to be in this newsletter and send it out obviously to their, hundreds of thousands of email subscribers, which I hadn't really thought of recently, I guess.
Mhm.
I knew it was a thing, but I think you're right. I've seen so much going on with email marketing in the past several months, specifically for me, that when I was talking to them about it, I was like, oh, like they're charging as much as a brand deal over here. Cause I
Yeah.
just wasn't immersed in that world of creators who are doing kind of everyday jobs, I guess,
Mhm.
who weren't just, full time content lifestyle creators. But I agree with you. I think email marketing is huge. And if brands aren't doing it, they have to
Yeah.
really and invest some dollars into it because it is the return is crazy.
Yeah, it, because of AI, there are now ways for people to write content at
Mhm.
scale.
Yeah.
And if the input is correct, the output can be very rewarding and very useful. So like, again, that's helped that process grow. The written communication's always been a challenge just because of the time
Mhm.
that it takes to
Right.
actually get it right. And so that's one thing. Um, and look, I think the third thing is like, the rise of the talent brand. Like I think
Mhm.
hopefully we've called it the creator. I laugh. I'm so rude. We called it the creator economy. Although all my creator friends are finally just coming off strike or begging
Mhm.
for end of year deals right now as creators or podcasters who don't identify as creators.
Mhm.
And podcasters are in someone's ear every single, I mean, in a very intimate way for usually
Yeah.
30, 45 minutes for years. I mean,
Mhm.
it's such a valuable creator economy just in the podcast community in and of itself. And they're reliant on the social media to try to grow their,
Mhm.
because that's where they think brands like us are looking for them. So,
Definitely.
maybe if I can, just sort of throw that out there and if there's a word that you should spot in someone's Instagram profile, if you're sussing them up to see if they're right, if they have that podcast,
Yeah.
having that, even if it's a couple of dozen people listening to it every single week, that word of mouth is so strong.
Mhm.
And I promise you that it's cheaper to advertise again on podcasting right
Yeah.
now than it is on social platforms. And then let's end on personalized AI. Meta AI just got announced. That's coming. Snapchat AI assistant's
Mhm.
been around a little bit. I
Yeah.
only know that because my niece taught me it. I'm hip and I'm down on that. But those platforms are going to race to control and
Right.
personalize the AI experience because the input dictates the output. Maybe
Right.
Laura was right again. And they don't want to give up their data if they
Mhm.
don't have to.
Right.
And AI, not to say that it's open source, but I remember the 4 years that a lot of my friends that started internet companies started them from 1997 to 2001 because of that Y2K bug that was
Yeah.
going to shut down everyone's lights are going to turn off. But again, I look at that as like the advent of technology where people really leaned in. Again, that my class that I was born into. Like, if
Yeah.
it's got a plug, he can fix it. If it's got batteries, he knows how to reset. But they were right. They were right, and I haven't given that up. I haven't given up video games either. And by the and and then I want to say that even like video games, who would have thought that they would be such a gigantic force in the entertainment sector?
Mhm.
As we're seeing this boom of digital streaming
Yeah.
platforms,
Yeah.
that are where, yeah. So just
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think that's it. I think it's that personalized AI.
Mhm.
It's the DM automation
Right.
that you've needed a company like ManyChat or another plugin to use. I believe will soon be inherently built into the app, so you no longer
Mhm.
need to rely on that
Right.
third party. And hopefully that personalization helps the creator, because right now personalization on platforms that are based on the algorithm are
Right.
personalizing the algorithm, not personalizing the creator. So
Mhm.
that's where the relationship between creator and AI, the input dictates the output. If it's
Mhm.
great content that creator has created and they have a catalog of it, it sounds like a great tip of the iceberg to be able to, be with.
So, and then my last question for you, for brands to stay ahead of the game as they enter 2024, kind of as you've been mentioning, I think really just honing in on AI and different AI tools that can really benefit them. So are there any other, different ways that as they enter 2024, they can stay ahead of the game, maybe besides AI? Because I know we touched on that one, and I think that's definitely at the forefront. I mean, I use AI. I already said this on LinkedIn, but I use an AI video tool when I film because I cannot remember lines, and it does an AI eye corrector. And it's great, right? I'm able to get a ton of content done in a short amount of time. But is there any other tools or tips that you can think of as they enter 2024?
Yeah, I want to talk about audio first content, because audio first content is no longer just podcasting and it's no
Mhm.
longer just streaming. There's a lot of business for creators that's happening right now on LinkedIn. There's a wonderful live community of audio first creators that are experts in their field, that are categorical leaders and experts in current jobs that
Mhm.
aren't even looking for a revenue stream from a brand as a creative perspective, but would love the support and alignment of the brand. Yes, that comes in financial form, of course, but it's knowing that there's power in numbers,
Mhm.
and that's a powerful relationship that can happen between the indie creator, the indie person who owns whether that's a brand or a creator. So in audio first, I think there's a lot of discovery that's yet to happen. So I think that's one thing. And I'd love to point out stickers and GIFs and
Mhm.
Giphies and, the library that feeds LinkedIn and Twitter is called Tenor. And the library that feeds Instagram and our iOS devices and Facebook, and I believe TikTok, is Jiffy. So there's
Mhm.
two different core libraries to be on. But being found, being created when someone wants you at their demand and from a search opportunity, it's a powerful opportunity as a brand to show up. And now knowing that those stickers and GIFs,
Mhm.
which is, I bring this up because probably most brands don't have a sticker and GIF strategy, by the way. You're giving people the opportunity to create in your voice. You want them to use your words, give it to them. You want them to use your tools, give it to them.
Mhm.
This is how we can support. This is what support
Yeah.
looks like to me, so that and it's what a wonderful opportunity to be tagged into it. But now
Mhm.
that those stickers and those memes are no longer just output, but are now input to the click of a button.
Right.
And so just I want to be mindful of the intellectual property exchange and what that all means. So I'm not
Right.
telling everybody create something and put it on the public market. We'll have a whole different conversation about how to leverage IP. But this is when brands need to be creating that audio. And audio first means maybe start a podcast, which gives you the RSS feed, an address that allows people to subscribe from you. You don't even need to create podcasts. You could just pick some of your great podcasters, and now
Mhm.
you've created a stage to support them.
Yeah.
And if you want to reward them financially, you can, again, I can, not the time or place, but I can give you the incentives
Mhm.
to make it rewarding for brand and podcaster. Because man, podcasters create hours of content. They make minutes of
Mhm.
videos. And now with AI, we finally have the ability to put out, short form content where it's prioritized thanks to YouTube. It's a big opportunity for us to stand out.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure we could go on and on because I was about to just bring up even more questions
Yeah.
regarding podcasts and everything. But that is all the time that we have today. So I really want to thank Vinny for taking the time and hopping on. I told you guys he was super knowledgeable about all this. He is always open to connect with people on LinkedIn. He's always posting on LinkedIn. And if you haven't listened to his podcast, definitely listen to it. Sign up for his newsletter. I absolutely love your career tips and all that. So I'm a
Thanks.
big follower, but that's it for today. Thank you, Vinny.
Thank you for having me. Are you kidding? This has been so much fun, and yeah, I'm here to support. So if you've been watching this, drop questions here in the stream, and I will be coming back and live answering. And if you're watching this on the replay, I'm still going to come back and lurk and see if more questions have been here. It's the comments and conversations and notes
Mm,
here on LinkedIn that will help this grow in other platforms. Thanks for having me, and I'm
thank
excited for what's
you.
to come.